The GI Film Festival San Diego is a collaboration between KPBS, the GI Film Group, and the San Diego Film Consortium. The six-day festival showcases local filmmakers and actors through movies and documentaries that span decades of military conflicts, wars, personal struggles, and triumphs. The festival kicks off with the thriller Kilo to Bravo, about a group of British troops fighting in Afghanistan who encounter a real-life incident. Take a look.
Anything happens to me down there, tell your mum I love her.
We've got a man down!
Let's go!
Joining me are Kilo to Bravo director Paul Kadis and Bob Lawrence, former military reporter and member of the GI Film Festival San Diego Advisory Committee. And Bob, give us a brief overview of the types of films that are going to be at this festival.
I think it's going to run the gamut. This festival started about a decade ago on the East Coast in Washington, Virginia. And this is really the first real foray out to the West Coast, and San Diego is such a natural fit. You know, we have the largest retired and active duty military community anywhere in the country, and this is a perfect fit. But one of the reasons that KPBS, and by the way, thanks for being one of the sponsors to bring this out here, because this is not a one and done. This is the beginning. And so what these films are going to do, you saw a clip of Bravo, that movie, Paul's movie.
Right, Kilo, right.
I mean, it's chilling, but what it does, along with some of the other films here, is show you what Camp Pendleton, what Miramar, what Naval Station San Diego, what the SEAL, all those, they're about brotherhood. And there's a wide variety of films that you can see about that.
And one of those, Paul, was in the clip that we just saw, your film Kilo to Bravo, about these British soldiers on a mission to get out of this landmine. Why did you want to tell this particular story?
Well, I wanted to tell a story that showed what the real British troops' experience was like on the ground. And we came across this story, and it just seemed to encapsulate everything that you could possibly want to say. At the same time as, fortunately to my mind, not having to portray the enemy. The enemy was left by the Russians decades before in the ground. And so by not having to portray the Taliban as such, you could sort of manage to avoid some of the politics about the Afghanistan war. And you could just see the soldiers' experience. Yeah,
in speaking of which, your film has a disclaimer that says it includes strong language, which it does, and bloody injury detail. Is this a movie for the faint of heart? Is it graphic?
I don't think it's as graphic, to be honest, as some Hollywood movies like Final Destination 3 or whatever it might be, with limbs flying through the air. It is just realistic. You know, we did our research. We found a surgeon who had treated lots of mine victims, and he looked at his photo album. So, you know, it's real. And we make no apology for doing that. The whole idea was to make the experience as real as possible.
And why was that important to be so accurate in this movie?
Because this is what the guys are going through. You know, we as civilians, you know, send these guys off to fight for us. And yet, do we really know what goes on? I'm not sure we do. So, you know, one of the motivations for me, certainly, to make the film was to bring that frontline experience as close as possible to everybody else.
And Bob, what are some of the actual local films we've got? The Kilo to Bravo. What are some other local films being highlighted
One
here?
of them that I have the honor of being on the panel with is Common Men, Uncommon Valor. And that was Camp Pendleton Marines back in the day in Vietnam in the siege of Khe Sanh. And again, it goes back to Paul's film. It goes back to some of the others. If you remember a documentary called Restrepo, it's about these military outposts and how the person next to them is fighting for the person next to them. And it's this brotherhood that if you're not in the military or part of the military, you really don't get. But when you watch this, you begin to understand it, why they raised their hands and volunteered. This was all volunteer, if you recall. So they went to Afghanistan, they went to Iraq, but they volunteered to go. And this puts you in their boots as to what it is they did. The other part of these films, Max is another one. That's going to be on the Midway on Friday. These are about service dogs. They have the story about VVSD, the Veterans Village of San Diego, how that started. They even have documentary, another panel that I'm going to do about World War I, how these guys from Yale decided to fly.
Certainly it spans it, and I see you nodding. What would you like to see, Paul, people walk away from this, not just with your film, but from the whole festival?
Well, it is about sort of opening your mind to the experience of troops on the front line, I think. And, you know, so I'd encourage the general public as much as possible to go to see it, because in a sense, you know, that's who these films are made for. We will probably get a good military audience because they like seeing their own jobs portrayed, but I think I'd say the general public needs to see it.
Open to everyone. All right, film director Paul Kadis and Bob Lawrence, thank you so much. I want to let folks know that the GI Film Festival San Diego starts tomorrow night at 7 at the Museum of Contemporary Art in La Jolla. It runs through October 18th at various venues. More information about the film festival at kpbs.org.